Varka, a girl about 13, is rocking a cradle in which a baby lies, and murmuring, barely audibly, "Hush-a-bye, baby, I'll sing you a song." A green oil lamp is burning before an icon. A rope is stretched across the whole room from corner to corner, with swaddling clothes and large black trousers hanging on it. A big green spot from the icon lamp falls on the ceiling, and the swaddling clothes and trousers cast long shadows on the stove, the cradle, and Varka. When the icon lamp begins to flicker, the spot and the shadows come alive and start moving as if in the wind. It is stuffy. There is a smell of cabbage soup and shoemaker's supplies. The baby is crying. He became hoarse and exhausted from crying long ago, but he goes on howling, and no one knows when he will quiet down. And Varka is sleepy. Her eyes close. Her head droops down. Her neck aches. She cannot move her eyelids or her lips, and it seems to her that her face has become dry and stiff, and her head is as small as the head of a pin. "Hush-a-bye, baby," she murmurs. "I'll feed you by and by." A cricket chirps from the stove. Sorry if you can hear that. There's a plane going by. In the next room, behind the door, the master and his apprentice Afancy are snoring. The cradle creaks pitifully. Varka herself is murmuring, and all this merges into the lulling night music that is so sweet to hear when you are going to bed. But now this music is only vexing and oppressive, because it makes her drowsy, yet she cannot sleep. God forbid that Varka should fall asleep, or the masters will give her a beating. The icon lamp flickers, the green spot and the shadows begin to move, getting into Varka's fixed, half-open eyes and forming dim reveries in her half-sleeping brain. She sees dark clouds chasing each other across the sky and crying like babies. But now the wind has blown, the clouds have vanished, and Varka sees a broad highway covered with liquid mud. Down the highway stretches a string of carts. People trudge along with bundles on their backs, and some sort of shadows flit back and forth. Forest can be seen on both sides through the cold, harsh fog. Suddenly, the shadows and the people with bundles drop down in the liquid mud. "Why is that?" asks Varka. To sleep," comes the answer, and they fall fast asleep, sleep sweetly, and crows and magpies sit on the telegraph wires, crying like babies, trying to wake them up. "Hush-a-bye, baby, I'll sing you a song," murmurs Varka, and now she sees herself in a dark, stuffy cottage. Her late father, Yefim Stepanov, is thrashing on the floor. She does not see him, but she hears him moaning and rolling on the floor in pain. His rupture, as he puts it, is acting up. The pain is so intense that he cannot utter a single word and only sucks in air, his teeth shattering like a drum roll. Rat-a-tat, tat. Rat-a-tat, mother, Pelagia, has run to the manor to tell the masters that Yefim is dying. She has been gone for a long time and ought to be back. Varka lies on the stove, awake, and listens to her father's rat-a-tat-tat. But now she hears someone drive up to the cottage. The masters have sent the young doctor who come from town for a visit. The doctor enters the cottage. He cannot be seen in the darkness, but she hears him cough and clack the door. "Light a lamp," he says. "Rat-a-tat-tat," answers Yefim. Pelagia rushes to the stove and starts looking for the crock of matches. A minute passes in silence. The doctor feels in his pockets and lights his own match. "One moment, good man, one moment," says Pelagia, rushing out of the cottage and coming back shortly with a candle end. Yefim's cheeks are pink, his eyes shine, and his glaze is somehow sharp, as if Yefim can see through both the cottage and the doctor. "Well, so, what's this you're up to?" the doctor says, bending over him. "Aha, have you had it long?" "What, sir? It's time to die, your honor. I'm done living." "Enough of that nonsense. We'll cure you." "As you like, your honor. My humble thanks. Only we do understand. Since death has come, there's no use." The doctor fusses over Yefim for a quarter of an hour. Then he gets up and says, "I can do nothing. You must go to the hospital. They'll do surgery on you. Go right now. Go without fail. It's a bit late. Everybody's asleep there, but never mind. I'll give you a note. Do you hear me?" "How is he going to get there, good man?" says Pelagia. "We have no horse." "Never mind. I'll ask the masters. They'll give you a horse." The doctor leaves. The candle goes out, and again she hears rat-a-tat-tat. Half an hour later, somebody drives up to the cottage. The masters have sent a rig to go to the hospital. Yefim gets ready and goes. Now comes a fine, clear morning. Pelagia is not home. She has gone to the hospital to find out what is happening with Yefim. Somewhere, a baby is crying, and Varka hears someone singing with her own voice. "Hush-a-bye, baby, I'll sing you a song." Pelagia comes back. She crosses herself and whispers, "They said it during the night, but by morning he gave up his soul to God, the kingdom of heaven, eternal rest. They say, caught it too late, he should have come earlier." Varka goes to the woods and weeps there, but suddenly somebody hits her on the back of the head so hard that she bumps her forehead against a birch. She lifts her eyes and sees before her the shoemaker, her master. "What's this, you mangy girl?" he says. "The little one's crying, and you sleep?" He twists her ear painfully, and she shakes her head, rocks the cradle, and murmurs her song. The green spot and the shadows of the trousers and swaddling clothes ripple, wink at her, and soon invade her brain again. she sees the highway covered with liquid mud, shadows and people with bundles on their backs sprawl about, fast asleep. Looking at them, Varka passionately longs to sleep. It would be such a pleasure to lie down, but her mother Pelagia walks beside her and hurries her. They are hastening to town to find work. "Give alms for Christ's sake," her mother asks passerby. "Show God's mercy, merciful people." "Give me the baby," somebody's familiar voice answers her. "Give me the baby." The same voice repeats, angrily and sharp now. "Sleeping, you slut?" Varka jumps up and looks around her, understands what is the matter. There is no road. There is no road, no Pelagia, no passerby, but only her mistress, standing in the middle of the room, come to nurse her baby, while the fat, broad-shouldered mistress nurses and quiets the baby. Varka stands and looks at her, waiting till she is finished. Outside the windows the air is turning blue. The shadows and the green spot on the ceiling are becoming noticeably paler. It will soon be morning. "Take him," says the mistress, buttoning her nightshirt over her breasts. "He's crying. Must be the evil eye." Varka takes the baby, lays him in the cradle, and again begin to rock. The green spot and the shadows gradually disappear, and there is nothing left to get into her head and cloud her brain, and she is as sleepy as before, so terribly sleepy. Varka lays her head on the edge of the cradle and rocks with her whole body so as to overcome sleep, but her eyes keep closing all the same, and her head is heavy. "Varka, light the stove." The master's voice comes from behind the door. That means it is time to get up and start working. Varka leaves the cradle and runs to the shed to fetch firewood. She is glad. When you run and walk, you do not feel so sleepy as when you are in a sitting position. She brings the firewood, lights the stove, and feels how her stiffened face relaxes and her thoughts become clear. "Varka, set up the samovar," cries the mistress. Varka splits some splinters and has barely had time to light them and put them under the samovar when she hears a new order. "Varka, clean the master's galoshes." She sits on the floor, cleans the galoshes, and thinks how good it would be to put her head into a big, deep galosh and have a nap there. Suddenly, the galosh grows, swells, fills the room. Varka drops the brush, but immediately shakes her head, rolls her eyes, and tries to look at things in such a way that they do not grow and move as she looks. "Varka, wash the steps. It's shameful for the customers." Varka washes the steps, tidies the rooms, then lights the other stove and runs to the grocer's. There is much work and not a free moment, but nothing is harder than to stand in one spot at the kitchen table and peel potatoes. Her head droops on the table, potatoes flash in her eyes. The knife keeps falling from her hand, and around her paces the fat, angry mistress, with her sleeves rolled up, talking so loudly that it makes her ears ring. It is also a torment to serve at the table, do the laundry, sew. There are moments when she longs to forget everything, collapse on the floor, and sleep. The day passes, looking at the darkening windows. Varka clutches her stiffening temples and smiles, not knowing why herself. The evening darkness caresses her closing eyes, promising a sound sleep. In the evening, her masters have guests. Varka, set up the samovar, cries the mistress. Their samovar is small, and before the guests have had enough tea, she has to heat it up some 5 times. After tea, Varka stands in one spot for a whole hour, looking at the guests and awaiting orders. Varka run and fetch 3 bottles of beer. She tears herself from the spot and tries to run faster so as to drive sleep away. Varka, run and fetch vodka. Varka, where's the corkscrew? Varka, clean the herring. But now finally, the guests have gone. The lights are put out. The masters go to sleep. Varka, rock the baby, comes the last order. A cricket chirps from the stove. The green spot on the ceiling and the shadows of the trousers, swaddling clothes again, get into Varka's half-closed eyes, flicker and cloud her head. Hush-a-bye, baby, she murmurs. I'll sing you a song. And the baby cries and gets exhausted from crying. Again, Varka sees the muddy highway, the people with bundles, Pelagia, her father Yefim. She understands everything, recognizes everyone, but though her half-sleep, she simply cannot understand what power binds her hand and foot, oppresses her, and keeps her from living. She looks around, seeking this power in order to rid herself of it, but she cannot find it. Finally, worn out, she strains all her powers and her visions, looks up at the flickering green spot, and, hearing the crying, locates the enemy that keeps her from living. The enemy is the baby. She laughs. It amazes her how is it that she was unable to understand such a simple thing before. The green spot, the shadows, and the cricket too, seem to laugh and be amazed. A false notion takes hold of Varka. She gets up from the stool and, smiling broadly without blinking her eyes, walks about the room. She is pleased and tickled by the thought that she is about to rid herself of the baby that binds her hand and foot, to kill the baby, and then sleep, sleep, sleep. Laughing, winking, and shaking her finger at the green spot, Varka steals up to the cradle and bends over the baby. After strangling him, she quickly lies down on the floor, laughing with joy that she can sleep, and a moment later is already fast asleep, like the dead. Wow. So that's the end of that story. Quite different. It was written in January 1888. So, yeah. That was a little weird. Hopefully that wasn't too weird for you. But, yeah. Chekhov is an incredible writer, so I do recommend reading some of his works. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'm new to making these ASMR videos, but any requests you guys have, please leave them in the comments, and yeah, just leave a comment and I'll get back to you. This is my second video, so I'm still getting used to all of this. It's a little different for me, but yeah, I'm glad to be making these videos, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.